Hi there, and welcome to The Revampires. We are Emily and Mendy, a mother-daughter team of doll customizers. You might have seen our previous video where I drew up this concept art for a winter vacation Frankie Stein doll from Monster High. Now the time has come to turn that into an actual doll. The first thing to do was grab all our Frankies in the stock box and see which one was best to use. Some had potential, others were a little scrappy, but one stood out above the rest, Sweet 1600 Frankie. She has all her limbs, already has tinsel in her hair like I wanted, and even her makeup is eerily similar to what I designed. I swear I did not think about this doll at the time. Let's start with the shoes. First, I wrap my model doll's feet in aluminum foil, then use paper mache to create a cast around them. I'm just using equal parts water and Mod Podge, and some loose leaf paper left over from my grade school days. Look, as a writer, the last thing I can make myself throw away is paper. Coming back the next day, they're nice and dry. I make a slit down the back with an X-Acto knife to remove them. Hey! I also trim the tops down so that they're even. Now that we have actual shoe shapes, what are we going to cover them with? This is an old shirt that no longer fits me. It's stretchy, and Mom said that the texture reminded her of the kind of sportswear that wicks your sweat, so good enough for me. Let's cut off a sleeve so it's easier to manage, and cut out sections just big enough for the shoe. May I introduce you to our hot glue gun box? This is something that Mom put together out of some extra cardboard. These little finger protectors are also very handy for projects like this. I start at the toe, then go up, around, and under, trimming excess as necessary. Then I tuck the ends in at the back and smush them with more glue. Now, my original plan was to use epoxy sculpt to form the bottom of the boot, but a couple of things hadn't occurred to me. See, in my concept, I designed the boots with that invisible wedge look and really only intended to use the epoxy for that bottom strip. But I forgot to include that part when casting the paper mache, so I'm trying to use the epoxy to create the full heel, which adds more weight. Not to mention, the epoxy already doesn't like sticking to this fabric, and the weight isn't helping. Yeah, with the two parts already mixed, I had to switch gears fast. So my plan is to, use this for just the bulk to get the shape that I need, and then just drape a thin layer of the epoxy over it.
What about cardboard?
Cardboard would also work. I ended up cutting out several small triangles, using masking tape to hold them together, and hot glued them to the shoes. Then I flattened out the epoxy as best I could and draped it over the heel and the toe. I also rolled a pencil over the bottoms for a tread texture. And this is what they look like after curing and being sanded. Maybe a little horse-like, but for my first pair of shoes from scratch, they could be worse. I paint the sculpted parts with acrylic paint and glue on a silver ribbon to make that bottom strip. For the rivets, I found another old shirt covered in sequins that I thought would work perfectly. Just gotta pick them off. I glue small ones around the bottom. And big ones across the toe. For finishing touches, I have this gold thread, and look at these tiny pom-poms! Oh my god, they're so cute! I carefully glue the thread around the back of the heel, giving me something like this. As for the pom-poms, we only have them in white, and I want 2 of them to be black. Let's try using pastels. I scrape off some dust and roll them around in the tray. And make sure to wipe off the excess. Not bad, but I'd still like it to be a little closer to this black fur we have. Different approach. I take a tiny bit of black paint and water it down a lot, like a very thin ink. And then carefully dab it on with a brush. I'm trying to maintain the fuzziness of the pom-pom as best I can. Nice! While those dry, here's some gratuitous footage of the fur I'll be using for the trim. It is so soft. I cut out a little strip in each color and brush out as many of the loose fibers as I can. Putting that same gold thread on a needle, I feed it through one pom-pom, through the back of the fur, stopping at the length I want, back down, and catch the other pom-pom. Then I attach the whole cuff with a couple dabs of super glue and clean up. And that's the shoes done. Moving on to the clothes, I found this striped cotton fabric in our supplies that I thought would work great for the leggings. I also originally wanted to use textile medium to paint it, but also while looking through our supplies, I found these fabric paints that apparently have never been opened. However, when I did open them, the yellow was super thick and goopy, and the red... Right, Plan B, which was Plan A. Textile medium. This stuff can basically turn any regular acrylic paint into fabric paint. Just make sure to follow the directions on the label for how much you should add and how long you should let the fabric dry, because it does depend on the brand. This was about as far as I got before I took a step back and, with a gentle nudge from my mom, realized that the color scheme really wasn't working out. The yellow was too saturated and the red was an unnecessary accent. So let's try it again. This time Mom found, what else, an old t-shirt that's knit instead of cotton and cut it to more appropriate shapes for her to sew from. And I have a much more balanced color palette of paint. I still use my first attempt as a design guide, though. I tried to keep the designs in the stripes simple, but still Frankie themed. Zigzags, pluses and minuses like battery poles, little lightning bolts, etc. And here's how the pieces look after painting. We left them to dry a few days before washing them and sewing them up. And this is what they look like! I think they turned out fantastic. Now, while the textile medium does help, they're still a little stiff from the paint and they need a little shimmying to get up Frankie's butt, but it is doable. Unfortunately, we both ended up getting pretty sick for a while during the stall, and Mom didn't really feel up to filming her progress, so I'll only be able to show you her finished pieces. This was also around the time that we got this pretty new work mat in the mail. Ooh! For the sweater, the original plan was to crochet it, but it just wasn't coming together, so I took these pattern pieces Mom cut out and decided to try knitting it instead. We've been pretty obsessed with this Summer Nights line of yarn lately, and we thought that this blue colorway would be perfect for Frankie. This technique is pretty straightforward. You just knit flat pieces in shapes that match the pattern pieces you need, and then sew them up afterward. Though if this is your first time doing this, I would recommend not using stockinette stitch like I'm doing here because it curls a lot. And also maybe make notes about where you do increases or decreases if you need to make multiples of the same piece. Just trying to help you learn from my mistakes. Once I've got all my pieces, I just need to put them together. Honestly, seaming is not my greatest skill when it comes to knitting, which resulted in a lot of bad camera work. But experts will tell you that as long as you're consistent in how you pick up the stitches, it should all look good in the end. So that's what I tried to focus on. And this is the final sweater. After assembly, I blocked it, which just means soaking it in water and letting it dry. This helps to relax the stitches so the fabric hangs better. Time for some more show and tell. So to finish off the main clothes, Mom made this simple black and white top out of a sock, and there is a snap closure in the back. The short sleeves will help it fit easier under the sweater. She also used socks for this super cute stocking hat. I can't. Look at the little tinsel pom-pom. And she added all of this embroidery herself. Just look at it. Let's try it on the model. Precious. Then we have her lightning bolt belt made out of faux leather, also with a snap closure. And last but certainly not least, the mittens. Once again made with socks, and they have elastic in the wrists, so they're super stretchy, but they stay on. They are perfect. Now, one thing Mom did manage to get footage of, which was kind of a last-minute addition, earrings. And she wanted to try casting them in resin. She made imprints in modeling clay with some factory earrings we have, and brushed them with baby powder to help in demolding. Spoiler alert, it didn't help. Then she mixed UV resin with some colorant and glitter, and dropped it into the molds. As a backup, she poured the excess into this clear mold that we got in a resin kit. Trying to scrape off the excess, and then cure everything under the UV lamp. To actually turn them into earrings, she dipped flat pins into the resin and cured them on top. Now the backups turned out great, even better than we expected. These guys, though, did not unmold, they did not fully cure, and we chalked this up as a learning experience. I said earlier I'm already pleased with her makeup, so I honestly don't feel the need to repaint her face. That leaves only one thing left, restyling the hair, which means a boil wash. I've got boiling water or close to it in the pot and a bowl of ice water. Then it's just a matter of alternating between pouring the hot water and dunking her in the cold until I'm satisfied. And this is what she looks like after drying overnight. Since she was originally rooted for an updo, there are a couple of thin spots on her scalp, but she'll be wearing a hat most of the time, so it really doesn't bother me. A couple of snips to clean up the tinsel for the new style, and that's it! It's time to put it all together! Let it be known that during the making of this doll, we had not one, but 2 beautiful snowfalls, which is pretty unusual for where we live. But by the time she was actually ready to photograph, we ended up having to fake it. Ah, well. For Frankie's look, I really wanted to try and capture that kind of classic nostalgia for snow days, like this might be her first time experiencing it. And even though a lot changed on the fly while we were making her, we are still so amazed at how closely she resembles that first drawing. We really brought her to life. Thank you so much for watching. We really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, you can support it by giving it a like. And if you'd like to see what doll projects we do in the future, then consider subscribing. Bye!
F is for friends, U is for you and me, N is for anything, anytime at all, down here in the deep blue sea.
That's going on the blooper reel.